You got to have more success on that short to middle routes. Right there, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And he was absent in week 1, so I see him being huge week 2. Oh, there's the other guy we got to have. It's got to be big in week 2. Sam Laporta. All day. Has to be automatic. The Lions are looking to clean up their play from a gritty win in week 1 and start 2-0 for the first time since 2017, while the Bucs are trying to ride their offensive momentum but survive some key injuries. These two teams will meet for the third time in 2 years here in week 2, Sunday, September 15th at 1 p.m. on Fox. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Johnny Gaz. I appreciate you returning for another video. Let's go through those pregame news, notes, and roster updates, and then I'll give my final prediction on week 2, Lions versus Bucs. Let's go. Before we dive into another playoff rematch, make sure to like the video if you dig the vibe here at Johnny Gaz Sports. We're going for 150 likes on this particular video. I would love it if you'd consider subscribing to the channel. We are just short of 2,000 subscribers. Thanks to you guys. This ride has been so much fun. Talking Lions football is a true passion of mine. Make sure to comment down below. Who do you have in this matchup, Lions versus Bucs? Who will the X Factor be, and what's your final score? Definitely let me know. There's a membership option now available here. If you hit the join button, I'll walk you through all the options you have to become a part of the family. Let's dive into week 2. Unfortunately, we have to start out with some sad news for this pregame show. Lions legend and Hall of Fame linebacker Joe Schmidt passed away this week at the age of 92. Of course, a Lions legend. He led the team to 2 championships in 1953 and 1957. He was with the team for over 13 seasons as a player, a 10-time Pro Bowler, an 8-time All-Pro selection. He was also the Lions head coach from 1967 to 1972. As I said, a great Lions legend. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the Schmidt family. Let's start by getting into those injury updates. It is a heavy one for this week 2 matchup for Lions and Bucs. Let's start on the Lions side of things. Ruled out is safety Ife Melifonwu as well as wide receiver Isaiah Williams. Isaiah Williams was an abdomen injury, and of course, Ife is suffering with an ankle injury here, so they are ruled out. Marcus Davenport, defensive end, who has suffered from several injuries the last several seasons, has been ruled doubtful for this matchup against the Bucs. He is suffering with a groin injury, and that's super unfortunate for a guy that had what I thought was a positive week 1, but he has an injury history, and this unfortunately just continues that here with the Lions in week 2. He is listed as doubtful, but the word I'm hearing from the Lions organization in these last couple days, I would expect him to be out for this week 2 matchup. Questionable, Kirby Joseph, also Jamison Williams. I expect both of those guys to play. And then, of course, Penei Sewell was listed as questionable with an ankle injury. Through his word over the course of the last several days, and he was a full participant in Friday's practice, I expect him to be a full go for Sunday. On the positive end of things, the Lions expect defensive tackle, free agent acquisition DJ Reader to make his debut here in week 2 against the Bucs. And it certainly comes at the right time, considering I believe Marcus Davenport will miss week 2 with his groin injury. If the Lions can get more interior defensive pressure, that could mean great things for the defense. Aiden Hutchinson, of course, the defensive ends, and the defense overall. So it's certainly the right time for him to make his return. He may be limited in snaps, but again, with the other injury concerns, let's see what he gives the Lions here in week 2. Different story for Tampa Bay. They are really hit by the injury bug getting into week 2. I think the biggest news for Buckstown is safety Antoine Winfield went out with a foot or ankle injury. They expect him to be out several weeks. Cornerback Bryce Hall suffered a season-ending injury to his ankle and fibula. He has been placed on injured reserve. He is also out. Cornerback Josh Hayes is questionable with an ankle injury. He was seen in a boot over practice later on in the week. I expect him to be out as well. We have right tackle Luke Godecki, who is also ruled out for this matchup. He didn't practice on Friday. He was under concussion protocol, so that hurts their offensive side on the football. Going back to the defense, Kalijah Cansey is questionable. He missed their week 1 matchup against Washington. He was non-practice on Friday due to a calf injury, so we'll have to monitor that. I would say he's leaning towards being out for this week 2 matchup. Cornerback Tyke Smith, also questionable. He was no practice Friday. He had an unknown illness. Defensive tackle Logan Hall and Zion McCollum, the cornerback who had suffered injuries in week 1 or did not play, have been ruled as probable for this matchup against the Lions. And I expect both of them to play, considering the slew of injuries that Tampa Bay has. And we'll get into that in more detail as we make our predictions. Let's also go through some interesting notes before we dive into this Week 2 matchup. Starting on the Lions side, as we mentioned in the intro, they haven't started 2-0 since 2017. They're opening up this season with playoff rematches. Of course, they had the overtime victory over Matt Stafford and the LA Rams in Week 1, and they're looking to continue that momentum in the rematch of the divisional round last year against the Tampa Bay Bucs. These two teams played twice last year, as mentioned. The Lions won by 14 points and then 8 points. In Week 6, they beat the Bucs 20-6, and then in the divisional round, they ended up winning 31-23. Jared Goff has had a lot of success against Tampa Bay head coach Todd Bowles and his defense historically, so much so that he's averaging 383 yards per game against Todd Bowles' defense. That's the most by any quarterback in the NFL, including Patrick Mahomes, over that same span. Because of this, the Lions have leaned very pass-heavy against the Bucs in those two matchups last season. 87 pass plays to 48 run plays, which is very against their typical balanced offense that Ben Johnson likes to run. Carlton Davis and his familiarity with Tampa Bay. Of course, the Lions trading for Carlton Davis this offseason from Tampa Bay. The word is from Lions organization and camp this week is that Davis has provided fantastic information on the Bucs' offensive weapons, some of their defensive schemes, really being able to help the Lions out in this Week 2 matchup. Let's switch over to the Bucs side of the table. They had to switch over offensive coordinators this season, ended up bringing in Liam Cohen, who is formerly of the Sean McVay coaching tree. He has a heavy West Coast offense and is specializing in heavy in this motion-based pre-snap approach, which we saw a lot of in the Week 1 matchup against the Rams. I think the scheme that they put together to face the Lions really worked, at least as far as keeping them in the game. Matthew Stafford was fantastic, so you expect to see a lot of the same here from Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Bucs, who had a lot of success in Week 1 with Baker Mayfield in that passing game. Wide receiver for the Bucs, Mike Evans, is 2 points shy of the all-time Bucs scoring lead. He trails Martin Gramatica by 2 points. He's at 590 and needs 592 to tie the all-time Bucs scoring record. And of course, the Bucs will be shifting a lot of players to accommodate these injuries, especially in the defensive backfield. I think that will play a heavy part in the final outcome of this game, and we'll talk about that here in more detail. So here it is, Week 2, Lions-Bucs, September 15th, 1 p.m. on Fox. Playoff rematch of the divisional round in the NFC playoffs last year where the Lions won 31-23. The second playoff rematch the Lions will have this season. What a great way to start off the next season coming off a devastating loss in the NFC Championship game. A great way to jump back into the routine and getting involved in teams that will really put the pressure on in the NFC playoff run. Same thing for the Bucs. What a fantastic measuring stick game for them in Week 2. The unfortunate part is they have so many injuries, and again, we'll get into that. But the team that comes out victorious in this game will really have a leg up in the NFC as far as playoff seeding down the road, especially the Lions, considering they would have beaten the Rams and the Bucs, who both look to be playoff contenders here in 2024 and could play a huge part in seeding. Can the Lions clean up their shaky play from their Week 1 performance? I think that's the ultimate question. There really was some true offensive questions. Big weapons such as Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta were absent in their Week 1 victory. Now, they were able to find production in other places, Jamison Williams to name just one. But I don't think that's something you can consistently rely on. You got to have your big players play, and I expect to see a huge load of Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially in this Week 2 matchup. Can the Bucs overcome their injuries, especially defensively? Their defensive backfield is completely riddled. Losing All-Pro safety Antoine Winfield, I think, changes that defense, their defensive approach. It seems like it may only be a couple weeks, so hopefully they can get him back and get that defense back into shape. But for this Week 2 matchup, I think that really puts them behind. They were already hurting in the cornerback room, and now it looks like they may have lost both both of their starting corners. Zion McCollum looks like he is on a track to come back. So they have one of their decent cornerbacks still in the rotation. But outside of that, they're going to be shifting guys around and making a makeshift secondary for this Week 2 matchup. And that really leans in the Lions' favor. Again, trying to get their passing game going, trying to get Jared Goff back to this comfortable level, back into his 2023 shape. And I think that certainly leans in the Lions' favor. Can the Lions contain Baker Mayfield and the wide receivers? We talked about in our full game preview just a little while back how all three of their big-time receivers had touchdown catches in the Week 1 performance. Baker Mayfield overall had 4 touchdowns and really looked good and in control in that win over the Washington Commanders. Can the Lions defensive line contain him or get him off kilter enough to where he'll make mistakes? You know, I think Baker Mayfield has the ability to make plays not only with his arm but with his legs. So the Lions are really going to have to do everything they can to maintain him or force him into bad situations. Is the Lions offense just too much for the Bucs D in this matchup? You know, even with a full slew of defensive backs or a secondary, I think the Lions would still have the advantage. We'll add that now in, and does that make this a situation where the Lions offense overwhelms them here in Week 2? Again, I really think that because of their lull in Week 1, I think the Lions passing game especially is going to want to come out firing on all cylinders. And that is going to, in my opinion, overwhelm this matchup very early on. Because of this, I have the Lions winning this game big. I just think that they're wanting to establish the momentum of the season here very early on. They know what their pitfalls were in Week 1. Jared Goff typically does not go back-to-back with weak performances, and I would put all the money I have in my bank account on the fact that Amon-Ra St. Brown will have at least double the amount of catches he had in Week 1, 3 for 13 yards. I think you can bank on that. The overall line is now set at minus 7.5 against the Lions, and the over-under set at 51.5. My final prediction for this game, I have the Lions winning 38, Bucs 24. So that's a big spread. I know that, but I just think the Lions separate themselves early and maintain this. I just think that there's not enough talent on the Bucs side of the football defensively to hold this Lions offense down, and I think they end up steamrolling this game. I don't say any of this to go against the Bucs. I think it's just a tough timing compared to when the injuries happened. I think they sort of had a mirage win against the Washington Commanders in Week 1. I'm not saying the Bucs are not a good team. I like Baker Mayfield. I like the weapons they have, and they truly will be a playoff contender here in 2024. But I think early on this season, with everything considered in Week 2, I think the Lions overwhelm this matchup and get the win. So what do you guys think? What do you have in this matchup of Week 2, Lions and Bucs? I have a huge separation of points, a 14-point spread, 38-24. Am I crazy? Tell me what you think down in the comments below. I'm very interested. If you dig the vibe here at Johnny Guest Sports, please hit that like button. It's the best free way to help out the channel. And I'd love it if you consider hitting the subscribe button. We are 9 subscribers away from 2,000, all thanks to you guys. There's a membership option available. If you want to become more involved here in the channel, hit that join button, and I'll walk you through all the options you have to become a part of the family. But more than anything else, I want you to make sure to take care of your mental health. That is more important than anything. I want to make sure you come back and see me on future videos. Thank you guys so much for your time. Enjoy your football Sunday. Go Lions.